So let's talk about a topic that is, I think, very, very relevant to the long-term relationship that you have with training. And that's whether or not you have a healthy relationship with training. The reason I talk about this, guys, is because everyone that I have the privilege to work with loves to be active. And whether it's to run, to ride, to swim, to hike, to get out to nature, to sign up for events that they are curious about where they can take, where their fitness can take them. They've got their dream about being in the mountains. They dream about being out on a trail, running through the woods. They're running along the coastline. They dream of how getting away for multi-days and out on their own and challenging their mindset, the psychology themselves. Escapism, being able to kind of escape the stresses and the strains of life. I am that. I found it at 41 years old. I've never loved my training as much as I do now. In a weird way, I used to compete a lot, but in certain sports, but the relationship I now have with my training is so much about, again, just getting out into nature and just kind of diffusing the day-to-day stresses of running businesses and paying taxes and meeting expectations of being a father and a husband. The reason I want to talk about this, guys, is why is it important for us to talk about this? Well, because there's a longevity play here. There is I want to talk about the sustainable approach that potentially you have or you don't have right now with your training. And what I get to witness on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis is people that have found running, they've found training, and they later on potentially in their life, or they've come back into training later on, and they're loving it and they're embracing it, and they're finding as much time as they can in their working week to integrate as much training or as they can into their life. And it's amazing to see, right? And it's a wonderful addiction. And I've always said it, it's one of the best addictions you'll ever have is the ability to be able to get up every day and want to be active in some form, whether it's jumping on the turbo, whether it's going to the swimming pool, jumping into the ocean, it's whether going out for a run on the trails, going for a hike at the weekends. There's so many options now and we do, and it's become this wonderful thing. And it's become, as we know that in our culture, it's becoming more and more and more kind of, people are becoming more and more active. I like to think. But are your behaviors sustainable? And how can we recognize whether they are or they're not? And when we talk about a healthy approach to your training, I'm probably going to contradict myself along the way in this episode because, there is always this somewhat unhealthy relationship you're going to have when you're pushing yourself, when you are asking more of yourself, when you're going beyond. You're always going to dip into this kind of, into this mindset, and because we want to see what we're good for, we want to push our boundaries. However, when you step back from your training approach, or when we look at, how much training you're doing, the type of training you're doing, the environments you're doing it in, the why behind the kind of the psychology of why you're doing the certain sessions and why you're kind of fueling the way you are, and the nutrition that you're kind of sustaining yourself on, the amount of recovery that you do or do not have, all the other things that make it up. That's what I want to explore today, because these are the qualities, guys. When you start a training program, are you just buying into a set of sessions over the next number of weeks and months? And what expectations are you setting yourself? What perceptions are you kind of allowing yourself to have, right? And so what I want to do, Charlie, is just break this down a little bit from a coaching point of view, from someone that is helping people run 100 miles for fun, 200 miles for fun. They're able to, I've spent the last almost 20 years now helping people, my wife included, kind of find a sustainable approach to training 6.5 days a week, to running upwards of 100 miles a week and at a peak of their training blocks, being able to train 3 times a day, run, ride, strength train, being able to fuel that. There is an art to it, right? And it's based upon you. But we are living in a society now where we have an abundance of role models and inspirational figures. But I think you guys would agree that some of them probably aren't doing it, in a sustainable manner. A lot of them are doing it coming from a place where they're doing it from a place of passion, but they're not doing it from there's a lot of logic lacking from their approach. And what I mean by that, I mean that from a place of care, right? Again, I work with people that want to train all year round, year after year, and they want to be doing it long into their 70s, 80s, 90s. I want to be active until I die, as simple as. But if you don't respect the variables and the approach that you take to your training, you will lose that. You will lose that. You'll lose that ability to be able to train the way you want to. Because I see it every day. I see people who find themselves innocently falling into kind of injuries, long-term setbacks, tendinopathies, bone stress injuries, massive periods of their life where they're kind of instantly falling into low energy availability. They don't realize it, and it's impacting their menstrual cycle. It's impacting their levels, their hormonal levels, their ability to actually think clearly on a day-to-day basis, have quality energy for their, in their relationships. It's because of this innocence, because their training approach has been unsustainable for a long time. So what are those variables, guys? Well, it's the key, it's the pillars of performance. This is this comprehensive training approach that you've got to have. I'm going to say you've got to have, because you look at any other sport to be able to sustainably maintain high training output. You can't just be relying on just a simple training program of training sessions. You've got to be diligently thinking every single week about those key variables. What is that? Well, it's going to be periodized training. Does your program integrate into your lifestyle? Like, does it fit around your current stresses and strains and time commitments and work commitments and energy commitments that you're already kind of expending? You're a mother, you're a father, you've got your commute to work, you're running a business, you've got you've got a finite kind of time frame within your week. So having a generic training program is going to be something that's going to be pretty much unsustainable from the outset. Do you have a relative understanding of your nutrition, the fueling requirements that's going to be necessary to sustain that next 3, 4, 5, 6 months? Are you having regular conversations around your nutrition? When it comes to your recovery, do you really have a good, healthy relationship with recovery? Are you someone who is able to say no to sessions, to back off at the right times, to listen to your body? Are you able to take rest days on a periodic basis? Are you able to deload your training? Do you have strength and conditioning integrated throughout your training year? Why? Because so you can prevent the onset of injury, you can prevent the atrophy, the weakening of muscle groups around your body, because you do a lot of one certain types of training, and you're combating the amount of sitting that you're having to do on a day-to-day basis, and the kind of compounding kind of impacts of running a lot, or riding a lot, or swimming a lot. Understanding, guys, that these variables have got to be considered every single week. And so when you look at someone who has a very sustainable, healthy relationship with their training, they're considering these variables all the time. They may not preach and be very outward about it. They're not kind of sort of documenting all the time. But if you were to look at their lifestyle, you look at the way how they integrate their training, how are they able to sustainably train year after year after year? It's because they have a comprehensive lens. They're looking at the wider picture, and there is a non-negotiable relationship with these variables. Like, yeah, they've got a training program that they're working with their coach with their training program, but alongside that, they have this an integrated strength and conditioning program. Like, they are training from home. They've got certain behaviors, pre and post training sessions. They're lifting weights. They are utilizing resistance bands and doing bodyweight strength exercises. They're respecting the fact that the previous injuries they've had, and they're constantly working on that rehabilitation work, that rehab work, to make sure that they stay on top of those of them kind of their biomechanics. They're periodically looking at their food diary. They have a healthy relationship with their nutrition. They are very aware that whatever bias, whatever their preferences they have, they know that they need to get a central amount of macronutrients into their body. They have to have a quality protein source pretty much with every main meal. Where that protein comes from, that's got to be up for discussion and but you have got to be getting enough in. Carbohydrates are your friend. You have to be embracing carbohydrates. Why? Because as an endurance athlete, glycogen is literally the most important resource that we can be leaning into. Yes, of course we have fats and proteins are right up there alongside it, but carbohydrates is literally the powerhouse to brain function, to hormone regulation, to everything, to making sure that our metabolism is moving in the right direction. And that relationship with nutrition has to be evolving on a week-to-week basis. This naivety, this ignorance to following a training program, you're working with a coach, or you're working for a training program that program isn't also challenging how strong you should be getting stronger throughout that program. You should be working on areas of weakness. You should be fueling a better and better and better. You should be kind of having uncomfortable conversations as to whether you're doing enough around your nutrition. Could it be better? Could you be doing more? Can it increase in the frequency of your meals, the quality of your nutrition? These are behaviors of a sustainable athlete, someone who is going to probably be training for the rest of their life, because they have this understanding that energy availability is the critical element. And some people, it's easy, it's second nature. A lot of other people struggle and aren't challenging themselves enough on their nutrition. Recovery, guys, like that is right up there. Like a lot of people they love it so much that they buy into the lifestyle so much that their recovery becomes something that is kind of a luxury, almost, or something that you might flirt with when you have to, when you're absolutely you're redlining it. But again, we talked about this before, but recovery is equal to adaptation. Like understanding on a basic level, training. Why do you train? Because you're trying to allow your body to adapt to, you're trying to force your body to adapt to new stimulus. You're trying to push it, but that you're breaking your body down in those training sessions. But then you've got to give it equal amount of recovery time to adapt to all that training stimulus, all that load, all that intensity, all that volume. A lot of people just don't do that. They are, we're talking, and again, we're seeing people who are, I'm not going to say names, but we've got people out there who are like trying to maintain 100-kilometer weeks, 100-mile weeks of training. They have this relationship where they feel like they should be training almost daily. But yet, if you step back from a sports science point of view, from a physiological, psychological point of view, like, that incessant need to consistently tick those boxes, it's kind of almost championed, but there is an obvious unsustainable approach. And actually, when you go beneath the kind of the shiny veneer of some of these influencers and some of these kind of role models, there's a darkness there. There's a reason why they are constantly doing this to themselves, because they're escaping. They're working through trauma. Like, and it's, again, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but there's a lot of people out there who utilize their training. But again, what I'm talking about here, guys, is sustainability and understanding for your own personal health and your own personal long-term performance, recognizing what is going to be sustainable, what is going to be sustainable for you, like in the long term, what is going to allow you week after week, month after month, allow your body to tolerate that ever increasing in volume. We do now live in a world where we can sustain high volumes of training. It's evident. We're seeing records broken every year. We're seeing men and women being able to achieve phenomenal feats of endurance, but how are they doing it? And then we have to go a little bit deeper and go, okay, well, is it sustainable? And there are evidence everywhere that we're seeing people just dropping off left, front, and center with long-term stress fractures, long-term issues, because they've kind of burnt bright and then they burnt out. What I'm always going to be preaching, guys, and the strength for endurance is having strength for life. Having the ability to perform, to live the lifestyle that you want to live long term, and it comes from understanding the fundamentals. This is what we do at Strength Endurance. We're constantly like building someone out a running program and integrating a strength and conditioning program. There's the frameworks that we're building, we're individualizing for someone. But on top of that, we've got to have this educational piece alongside that is challenging the levels of recovery that individuals working with. Do we need to be doing more recovery at times? Can we push on because we have had nice chunks of recovery, deload, then we can push on? What's that nutrition look like at the moment? Are we periodically looking at food diaries? We're constantly talking about it, not obsessing, but we have to challenge it. Like, are we in a good place right now? Are we sleeping well? Are we recovering well? Are our bodies kind of, are we regulating hormonally? A lot of people just don't even have that conversation, which is wild, guys, because if you're someone who doesn't know the state of your hormone profile, like what your blood markers look like, if you don't know whether you've got a regular menstrual cycle, if you don't know like if you've got healthy levels of testosterone running through your body, like these are the building blocks of your DNA. These are the building blocks of your muscle tissue, like your in terms of recovery and in terms of like the quality of sleep. Like your body, if you're going to bed hungry on a daily basis, that is going to compromise everything: recovery, your sleep patterns. You're going to have gut issues. You're going to struggle to repair tendons, ligaments. There's so many qualities here that we want to be considering, and it's just the way of things, guys. This is just logical, comprehensive approach to your training, having an understanding of this. What I'm scared of, I get very scared of, is we are championing a lot of unsustainable behaviors for the glory, and it's amazing, right? We have to go to these places. We have to go to these unsustainable levels at times to achieve this, but then your ability to rebound back into sustainable behaviors around your nutrition, around your training, around your ability to ebb and flow with your training. This is something as a quality that you want to be nurturing as you develop your relationship with training over the years, months and years. Like if you're someone who has probably always had struggled with injuries and setbacks, maybe you haven't had enough of a focus on these other areas of your training. Managing your training load, being able to push and pull your training, being able to drop certain sessions, not feeling like you have to cram and catch up with sessions. There's a psychology to training that I think it's not openly discussed about. Like, so again, was a wonderful addiction to training because we love it. You know, I'm addicted to it. I love to train pretty much every day, but also reading between the lines and knowing when your body needs more recovery, you need to be fueling to then be able to support your longer sessions coming up at the weekends, or pushing, being able to deload at the appropriate times, then be able to push on again. This incessant nature of just thinking we can push and ignore the basic concepts of strength and conditioning, basic concepts of understanding, like kind of the taboo subject around whether you like to eat, you struggle to eat more around other people. Like we have to meet some of these things head on if we want to have a consistent relationship with training. Evidence will show that right now we are seeing more and more kind of people struggling with bouts of low energy availability, RED-S. We're seeing people that are struggling with numerous running-based injuries, training-based injuries, because of this innocence, ignorance around the principles of training. A great training program will constantly be kind of putting touch points across the board with all of this. Why are you training? Like when are we pushing for events? When are we pulling back and just enjoying our training? When are we looking at kind of really pushing your relationship with nutrition, really dialing in on that, looking at your bloods periodically? Like when are we thinking about when we're going to put deloads? What does that recovery actually look like? Like these are so important, guys, for the long-term approach. People that are struggling and have a torrid time, and people who are who just seem to never have much luck with their consistent training, it generally is because they've probably never been held accountable to these other areas of their training, or they've never seen a training program that considers all these variables. Simply, guys, in black and white, when we work with someone who is working towards any type of training goal, building out a training program around their running, riding, swimming, whatever they're kind of working towards, that is one element. We then integrate strength and conditioning. We want to look at what the function of your body, previous injury history. We want to make sure that body can tolerate the upcoming amount of training that's going to be coming up in the program. We also want to know at some point along the way, what does that blood and hormonal health look like? Like just periodically, right? Have you done it in the last 6 months? Now, no matter what your age is, are we in a place where we can start to stress this body physiologically? Blood and hormonal health is one of the most simplest things we can now get access to. Why wouldn't we be doing that periodically to know that we're in a good place to push? If not, what do we need to be improving in our nutrition, supplementation? Very quick fix. What does your working life look like? If we've got these training programs that we want to put in place, what is that now going to look like on top of your working lifestyle, your lifestyle commitments? What is going to be the sustainable model that we can move forward with, the amount of sessions, the types of sessions, the volumes, the intensities, that is going to be replicable week after week, and we can build. Hypothetically, 8-12 weeks time, we're doing double the amount of volume. We're definitely faster. We're definitely training with more intensity. What does then that look like with your work life, family life, everything else? Why are you training? What is the why? Like your relationship, you've always trained 6.5 days a week. Why? Because somewhat you read something that worked for someone else. Does that work for you? If evidence says that you haven't had a consistent number of months of training over the last couple of years, evidence will say that maybe that's not the model that works for you. Maybe there's a threshold that you reach within your training where there's an appropriate amount of volume we can then create a great deal of quality within that volume, that amount of sessions. So it's constantly thinking like this, guys, and then having this ability, this kind of relationship with your training where you can push and pull, you can adjust, you can push your body to those extremes at the appropriate times that work for you, not just based off a kind of a two-dimensional template that isn't considering all those other variables. Comprehensive approach, guys. Like this considerate, caring, individualized, personalized, whatever you want to define it. But like this is why you see people who are somewhat just have this sustainable kind of approach to crazy high volume training. But if you actually go beneath the surface, strangely enough, they're considering all these variables, and they've learned this through other coaches. They've been self-educated. They're very self-aware, but they're critical thinkers, and you are a critical thinker. Like, yeah, no doubt about it. But are you putting that lens enough on the right areas of your training to then allow it for it to be a healthy, sustainable approach? surprisingly, guys, we've got people who are year after year training 5-6 days a week. They are training high volumes of training on top of being parents, running businesses, and they are not breaking down with injuries. They have good regular menstrual cycle. They have they have healthy levels of, of energy in their body to wear their multiple hats, be parents, run businesses, have a working career, have a good energy around the house. They have a plus. They're able to push their bodies at those appropriate times within a year. But how do we do that? With this comprehensive approach, guys. And this is so important because, again, I'm going to spend the rest of my career helping people work towards these PBs and working towards like lifetime kind of events and taking part in racing around the world. But beyond that, I want to make sure that the people that we work with have a healthy relationship with their training. They're able to sustain this forever because of the work that we do, because of like the nagging and the education that we're drip feeding, and what we and the open conversation that we have around these important topics of conversation. It should be widely discussed, and it's still, guys, this kind of shiny veneer that kind of oversimplifies a complex lifestyle. Is the complexity to maintaining high volume training alongside a busy working family lifestyle. We don't want to. It shouldn't be oversimplified. Everyone kind of needs a level of individualization to help them sustain it. Not for 3 months, 6 months. We're talking year after year after year. Hope that's useful, guys. It's something that it's important to talk about openly, because I think we get it's so easy to get excited, and we see the wins, but we don't see the long-term layoffs. We don't see people who are kind of burn bright and burn out. You've seen people who are innocently kind of falling in love with racing events, training, and then they break, and then they become disillusioned and then wonder why. And it's because there's not enough of this understanding around what is required to sustain this. And once you have these elements, and you can't unknow it. Once you know these things about yourself, like, you can't unknow it, and then it's a matter of just integrating those appropriate things within your training week, and then you're good. And you can just adjust as you go. And then this is why we see people who are able to train year in, year out, because they have this healthier, sustainable relationship with their training. So, all right, crew. As always, this is kind of bread and butter. This is what we love. This is what we do every day with our SFE crew. If I can help you guys with anything, let me know. Sweet soon.